Hi, everybody. My name is Claire Alford, and I am with Highland Electric Fleets. I'm on the market development team, and I am happy to be here to present to y'all at Florida Climate Week. I will say a little bit more about Highland when we get further into the presentation, but just a little bit more about myself. Again, on the market development team, I focus entirely on electric school bus education. I am based in Washington, D.C., and I cover D.C., Maryland, Virginia, New York, Texas, and also Georgia and Florida. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about the community benefits of electric school buses. And I like to start out with this slide because I think it highlights some of the maybe not so obvious community benefits. I think the ones that we hear a lot about, and rightly so, are the community health and climate benefits. Obviously, it's really important that not only our kids breathe clean air, but also our school bus drivers and at-large community members, especially when we see the dirtier buses in environmental justice communities. But some of the ones that I like to highlight here are some that we don't hear as much about. The first being school budgets. Electric school buses can help restore balance to transportation budgets with predictable energy pricing. I know in this past year, we've all experienced unpredictable energy pricing just in fueling our own gasoline cars. School districts are dealing with the same thing. So electric school buses can help stabilize that budget. Another one is driver satisfaction. And again, this past year, we've seen school bus driver shortages. And so I think it's all the more important that we provide both current school bus drivers and people who might want to become school bus drivers with a good ride. And electric school buses do that. They're smoother, they're quieter, and generally what I hear is that a lot of school bus drivers have fun driving them, which I think is really important. The last one I'll point out is emergency resiliency. I think this one's super relevant for Florida. I myself am a Houston native, so I'm no stranger to hurricanes, and I know that and Floridians are not either. And I think the idea of having a big mobile battery, such as the one in an electric school bus that can help, provide power during these times of grid outages, during these natural disasters, is a really compelling idea. So that's another one that I like to point out. So you see all these benefits on the slide. Why not go electric? I think two things. I think the first is a higher upfront cost. Transportation departments are often already operating on a tight budget, and so asking them to do a lot more planning wise, and tear up their depot and install charging infrastructure, all for a higher price. People are running to the door. And that's what this slide shows, is all there is that needs to be done when a school district is thinking about electrifying their depot. Procuring the buses, now procuring chargers too, which is new, retraining your maintenance workers, kind of rightly accounting for any change in maintenance costs, and then charge management, which is one of the newer aspects of electric school buses when talking to transportation directors. So all this higher sticker price, not the most compelling argument, and that is where Highland comes in. We were started back in 2018, so we're a relatively young company. We're based in the North Shore of Boston, up in Beverly, Massachusetts, and we have our headquarters there, and we just opened a second office in Denver, Colorado. We currently have over 330 buses under contract. We're behind the first electric school bus V2G programs, or vehicle to grid programs. So essentially where the big battery on the bus is sending power back onto the grid. And those are both in Vermont and Massachusetts. We're also behind the largest electric school bus project in North America in my backyard in Montgomery County, Maryland. And I'll talk more about the project in Massachusetts and in Montgomery County as we go on. We're a private company. We're backed by over $250 million in private capital, and we're an environmental justice community champion. And I think what's important to note here is that we are a private company, but we're really we're really set on improving the electric school bus market as a whole, including in those communities that need it the most. So right here is a heat map of US electric school bus or EVSB deployment. You'll see some pretty big ones, some small ones, but they really are scattered throughout the US. The big blue one on the right is Montgomery County, Maryland, the one that I mentioned that we're behind. That's the largest in the US. Another one I will point out is in Arizona with extreme heat operations. I think that's important. When I'm talking to folks in Texas or Florida, they always want to know how these buses operate in hot weather. And so I think that's a great example. I will not point out the extreme cold operations down in Alaska. Not necessary for this crew. But I think this is interesting because it shows kind of like how spread out the different deployments are. And you will see there are some bigger ones down in Florida. And that's thanks to the VW money that's been deployed. And I know, again, there have been some recent announcements just within the past couple months or so on some more school districts down in Florida that are getting money for electric school buses. So that's always good to see. So now I'm going to go a little more into detail on what Highland does. And how we work with school districts. So we offer an annual subscription style price to school districts that is either cost neutral or offers cost savings relative to what a school district is paying for diesel today. And for that annual price, which usually, we partner with school districts between 10 and 15 years. So for that annual price that they're paying between 10 and 15 years, we offer a variety of things. And our bread and butter is what I'm going to walk through right now. And that's the full package, everything from start to finish, step 1 to step 6. So it starts off with planning. We design the entire project in the very beginning. So we map out routes, we map out depot upgrades. We work with the school district to see, how many buses they want or what percentage rate they want to electrify. We map all of that out. And essentially based off of all of that pre-planning, we create a subscription plan that I mentioned. That's that annual subscription style price that includes buses, chargers, and depot improvements. So the third step is building. So we procure the school buses and then we procure the school buses and the charging infrastructure, and then we manage the construction of the depot upgrades. So 2 things I'll note here. We do not manufacture any school buses ourselves, but we do work with all of the major manufacturers of the school buses that you see on the road today: Thomas, IC, Bluebird. And the reason that we work with all of them and like to maintain that flexibility is because school districts and transportation directors have usually a brand of bus and a type of bus that they really like and they really want to continue working with. So if we're able to offer that flexibility, then I think it makes the transition to electric a little bit easier for them. And so the last thing I'll note here in step 3 is that this is the step where we're most heavily involved with the local utility and which the school district sits in. And I think it just emphasizes, or I like to emphasize to school districts when I'm talking to them, that they should be talking to their utility 6 months, 10 months ahead of when they actually think they want to start going electric. And this is something that Highland can help with. We have great relationships with a ton of utilities across the US and all of the different utility territories in which our school districts are in. And so we help with the fun part, which is the building. And then this is my favorite part, which is the training. So we train the maintenance workers and the school bus drivers that a school district already has to work or drive these electric school buses. So we're not displacing any jobs. If anything, we're arming the maintenance workers and the school bus drivers with hopefully a transferable skill that they'll be able to use and take with them from school district to school district throughout their career. And then once we get the buses out on the road, charging infrastructure set up, kids are being taken to and from school in the electric school buses. We help with 2 different aspects. One is the charging. So we charge school buses during off-peak hours. we ensure there's a full trip every morning and every afternoon when the school buses need to go out with children. And again, this charging aspect is one of the newer aspects to transportation departments at schools. So I think it's really important that we are there to help with that, and we can be as hands-on as hands-off as a school district likes. But I think a lot of times they really appreciate having kind of like the extra overview that we provide to make sure that the buses are always charged. And then the last step, oops, a little ahead of myself. The last step is number 6, we maintain. So we provide a complete service plan. And if something happens with a charging station or a battery, we cover that cost for the lifetime of our contract. So I will note here that it does sound a little too good to be true that for a cost neutral or cost savings price, we're going to do all of this. And the way that we do that is by wrapping in a bunch of different value streams. So the obvious ones are fuel and maintenance costs. Volume pricing, we are the largest purchaser of electric school buses in the US. So we purchase at a volume that a lot of times the school district's not purchasing at. So more volume, lower prices. And then if there's any potential vehicle to grid revenue available in the utility territory in which a school district is in, we can help them participate in that. We helped, and I mentioned this earlier, in both in Vermont and in Massachusetts, we've helped our school districts there participate in vehicle to grid programs, and they get that revenue and it gets passed on right to them. And then I think that's top of mind right now is if there are any state or local or federal rebates or grants or incentives that are available. We can help a school district apply or apply on behalf. It depends on the fine writing. And if they're awarded those grants or rebates, we can wrap those back into the price and pass those back on to the school district so they can recognize a lower cost. And the reason I think that this is most top of mind today is because at the federal level, we've just now seen the first round of funding go out, and we're waiting for the announcements on who's received it, but we're waiting for those. That's through the EPA's Clean School Bus Program, and we'll see more rounds of that in the years to come. That's a 5-year program, fully funded, so a lot of federal money available. And then mentioned this earlier, we've seen there are a lot of state and local rebates and incentives available in Florida through VW money and through other funding sources as well. So I like to note that. And yeah, so let's continue on. I think hearing that and seeing what we do, I think there's often an assumption that we can only work with larger projects. And that is just not true. We do have some pretty big projects. Again, Montgomery County, 326 buses, 111 chargers, 5 depots, pretty big. But in South Burlington, Vermont, and in Beverly, Massachusetts, the likes of 4 and 5 buses, 4 or 5 chargers, 1 depot. So we, the whole spectrum we can cover. And I think that's really important because I think as we try to get out of the pilot phase and try to get into, hope to see electric school bus projects across the US, I think it's really important that we're not leaving out the smaller school districts. So we can work with whoever. I want to speak a little bit more on Beverly, Massachusetts and Montgomery County. Again, Beverly, Massachusetts is one of our examples that I provided of a smaller school district. And Beverly is really near and dear to our hearts because our office in Beverly, Massachusetts actually looks out onto the Beverly High School. So very near and dear to our heart. They came to us and they wanted to do a 2-bus pilot, and now it's expanding to 30 buses because they have loved the experience that they've had with the electric school buses, which is really exciting. And this is the project, as I mentioned, that we worked with on the National Grid V2G project. So they selected Thomas built C2 Julies for their fleet. And you'll see on the pictures here the trenching that has to be done and the inside of the charging station. It's all really exciting to see behind the scenes. And I think what's important here is that we installed high power bi-directional charging stations that fully charge the buses in 3 hours. So 2 important things there. The buses are getting charged within 3 hours, which is really great. And they're bi-directional, which is what allows us to participate in the National Grid V2G program. I will point out Montgomery County here, again, largest school bus electrification project in North America. Over a 4-year deployment, we're providing 326 buses across 5 different depots, so quite a bit larger than Beverly. The Bethesda depot has been electrified. There are buses there, there's charging infrastructure there. Those buses were taking kids out, actually starting at the end of last school year, but obviously now we're doing the same, and we're working on electrifying the other 4 depots as we speak. So with that, I will say thank you again. I'm really glad that I'm able to participate in Florida Climate Week. And my email address is down at the bottom. It's a little small now that I'm looking at it, but it is just Claire, CLAIRE @highlandfleets.com. I'm always happy to answer any questions that you may have about electric school buses, transportation electrification in general, or connect you to one of my many smart colleagues who are on the ground dealing with these buses and charging infrastructure every day. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.